If I turn this mic on, you're going to be able to hear me better. So we'll start again. Thank you for joining me this morning. I want to jump right into something this morning that I believe is very both relevant and important for us to understand this morning. Because it's something that we talk about, and I think there are sometimes that we talk about things that we may not really understand. We just say it because that's what we've heard. And this morning I want to talk about one of those things, and that is the word sovereign. We use it a lot when we talk about God. God is sovereign. God is sovereign. But guess what? The word never actually appears in the King James version of the Bible anyway, and that's the one I mostly use. But it is a theological term that is used to describe what the Scripture says. It just says it in other ways. It doesn't use that particular word. And we see the use of this terminology, so to speak, the description, in Daniel chapter number 4, verse number 25. All right, so we're going to start there this morning in Daniel chapter number 24, chapter 4, verse number 25. It says that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee eat grass as oxen. And they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou knowest that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. Now, this is talking about a subject where the king was going to be driven out, and he was going to live like an ox, and he did. But the part that I want to get to, and this is why I just stepped into the middle of this story, and we're not even going to really touch on it. I want to touch on this part right here, where it says, the Most High. All right, that is a description of where we get the term sovereign from. See, the Most High is the Hebrew word Elion, the highest, the supreme one, the exalted above all. And that's what we mean by sovereign. He is the Most High. And we see this played out in different scripture. So that is the sovereignty. What we just read in Daniel, that is the sovereignty. It's not something that people just made up, oh, God's sovereign. No, he said he is sovereign. He just called himself the Most High. We call him the sovereign. And right now, as you are listening to this, watching this, whatever the case may be, I know that every one of us is going through some things. We're watching some situations play out in our lives, around our lives, things that we're connected to in our families, in health situations, in weather situations. Last night we had some pretty good storms roll through this area and near us. And, you know, we're talking about all of these things. And just in life in general, we see things happening. People are getting diagnoses, medical diagnoses, and we don't like it. And we don't know which way these things are going to turn out. We don't know what's going to happen. So there's a little bit of hesitation. You know, will the family be restored? You know, having family, the issues that come in family, will that family be restored? Will the diagnosis change? Will the prognosis be good? Will the outcome be good? What's going to happen? And there's a lot of uncertainty in those things. And we see this play out in our lives every day. This happens. And there are things that we don't have any control over. And so what do we do with that? I know We use a cliche a lot of times. Well, we just have to trust God. But why? You see, until we can understand why we can just trust God, then we are going to have a hard time truly trusting God. That's why the title of this morning's message is When We Don't Understand Why, Trust Who? When we don't understand why a situation is going on, when we don't understand why there's problems in the family, when we don't understand why that medical diagnosis, when we don't understand why is this weather going crazy around us and threatening problems in our life, what's going on? When we don't understand the why, we have to be able to trust the who. And by that, I mean, we have to be able to trust who is sovereign. We don't control that. We don't have any control over those situations. I can't control family matters. I can't control your family matters. I can't control my health, your health. Granted, I can do some things that should help to improve my health, but I can't control what's going on. And I sure can't control the weather, but or any of the other situations that are going on around me, for that matter, jobs or anything else. I can't control those things. But when I don't understand why something's happening, when I don't understand what's going on, I can understand who is the sovereign one. I can trust who is the sovereign when I can't understand why. And so this morning, that's what I want to look at. I want to look at some of the reasons that we can trust the who, even when we don't understand the why. And we're going to find that first when we go down, and we're going to look real quick in Isaiah 55:8. And this is the first, and it's probably one of the hardest things that we have to get a grasp on. And here it is. It says, in Isaiah 55, verse number 8, it says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." See, this is one of the things that we have to come to understand. We don't think like God. We don't act like God. We don't know like God. And so he gives us these things. He says, they're not my thoughts, your thoughts, my thoughts. We don't think like he does. We don't act like he does. And so that's why we have to be willing to trust God and know that God is sovereign. Okay? We have to know that he is the Most High. And he rules in the kingdom of men. Period. Full stop. End of discussion. Now, once we establish that, there's some other things that we're going to establish as we go down through here this morning, but we need to understand that. And so let's go to Isaiah 46, verse number 9. It says, "Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me." Wow. I am God, period. He says, remember the former things of old. Remember the things that God has done in the past. That's what he's trying to tell us. Remember the things that have taken place in the past. You know, we all have our ideas of how we want situations to work out. And we've all had those ideas before, and they did not work out the way that we wanted them to work out. But here's what we have to look at. Here's what we have to understand. God's ways are not our ways. Our thoughts are not God's thoughts. So we have to remember and go back to those things that didn't work out the way that we wanted them to work out, but we can see that God was working in them. He's God. There is none else. He said, I am God, and there is none like me. And then let's go on. We're going to go back over here because I want to see this. I wanted to stop right there for just a minute, and I wanted us to see, remember the former things of old. And here's what it says in Isaiah 46, number 10, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Okay, God says, remember the past. Remember the things that have happened in the past, because I'm God. I'm the one who is declaring the end from the beginning. And from ancient times, the things that are not yet done. He said, I'm the one that knows all things. I can see all things. God is timeless. That's one thing we need to understand. God is timeless. He already knows, and he has already seen the end of all things. And we have to trust him for that. We have to be willing to put it into God's hands, know that he already knows how this is going to end. Every situation. There's no situation that God hasn't already seen the ending of. But here's the other side of that. God also knows the next situation and the next situation and the next situation and the next situation. He knows how each and every situation is going to play out, and he knows how to weave those together. And that's what he's doing. You see, that's why he says, counsel. Okay. Now let's look back at this. Okay. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from the ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will declare all my pleasure. We're going to step right back into this here, and we're going to look at this. Okay? Right there. My counsel shall stand. What's that mean? Well, in Hebrews, it's a plan. It is a deliberate person, a deliberate purpose, and a settled decision. My counsel is going to stand. God says, I'm God. I'm sovereign. I know the beginning and the end. I knew the end before there was a beginning. I've already told you things that are going to happen that haven't happened yet, and I told you that from the beginning. So my plan is going to stand. It's not a guess. It's not a maybe. It is the plan, and this is what I'm going to do. Now, let's look at another word there, pleasure. It's delight. It's desire. It is will. Now, sometimes we just see that word pleasure. Oh, God takes pleasure in watching suffering and things like that. I've heard people say that before. Why does God take pleasure? It says that he's going to do his good pleasure. Look at the word. The word doesn't just mean delight. It's also his will. Why? Because sometimes we have to go through some rough times to get through and to learn what we need for the next time. I promise you, Daniel did not like some of the things he went through, but he had to go through it. Joseph didn't like some of the things he went through, but he went through it. Why? Because that's how they got to where they needed to be. So the point is, when we face a hard situation, God already knows how it's going to end, and he's not finding out with us. God has never been surprised. That's one of those things that occurred to me a long time ago, because somebody pointed it out. Nothing's ever occurred to God. He does his will. Why? Because his will has an end, and he knows what the end is, and he knows how to get us there, and he knows what's going to have to take place. So he will do his will. Now, we come right back around, and we're going to look a little bit deeper into these two verses that we've already read, but we're going to come back to them again and look a little bit deeper into them, and that is this. Isaiah 55:8. It says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord." The way we think about a situation is not necessarily the way God is thinking about it. And the way we want it done isn't necessarily the way He's going to do it. Sometimes we confuse that, and we'll touch on that here in a minute. But this is why. It says, "For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." So what are thoughts? Okay? What is a thought? A thought is a plan, a purpose, or a device. Plain and simple. God says, "I don't make plans the way you make plans." We make plans generally in a situation. God makes plans in a history. How is this going to step into this and into this and into this and into this and into this? And so God has that. And then we talk about ways. Well, there's ways that we would like to have things done. We would like to have all storms go away. We would like to have all sickness taken care of. We would like to have all family situations resolved and restored. God has a different path. He has a different road. You see, ways is a path, a road, a course of life. We don't necessarily think about the course of life. We have a tendency to look at what's now. This is unpleasurable. This is undelightful. I want out. That's the way that it sometimes gets looked at. And then when people bring this verse up, this passage up, and they talk about God's ways are different than our ways, and then some people just go the exact opposite, and they'll say, "I guess you'll just never understand it." But that's not what it says. It says God's ways are higher, not that they're random or careless. God has a plan. He has the long-term plan. See, that's what we have to look at right there. This is a course of life. Not just the moment, not just the immediate comfort, but there's a course of life. He has a higher plan is still a plan. And the fact that we can't see the whole road doesn't mean nobody's driving on it. But it's still there. God still has a plan. God has set thoughts. He has plans. He has purposes. He has a plan for our course of life. And we're going to have to trust Him. We are going to have to trust a verse that can be so easy to quote to people and so hard for us to live. I want you to stop and sit with that for just a minute. This next verse is so easy to quote, but it is so hard to live. What's that verse? That verse is Romans 8:28. "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose." That's easy to say. You know, when other people are having problems, difficulties in their life, things aren't going the way they would like them to, it's easy for us to say things like this. Well, just remember, all things work together for good. You know, usually that's the part that gets quoted. All things work together for good. Remember, God's working it out. And He is. But how hard is that to actually live out? So that's the part that's what we're trying to dig into, that when we can't understand the why, we have to know that we can trust the who. We can trust God. Why? Why can we trust God? Well, because all things work together. What does that mean? To work together with, to cooperate towards a result. Okay, so everything is working. He's actively weaving everything together. He's not just allowing things to happen around us. Why? Because remember his ways, his course of life. God has thoughts and ways. He has plans and purposes, and he has devices in place to lead us down the road that is going to take us down a course of life. Sometimes we may not like that. When I served in the Marine Corps, I always thought it would be great if I could have skipped boot camp. That was 13 weeks. That it was horrible. It was hard physically, mentally, emotionally. Overall, it was just hard. And boy, if we could just wish our way to the end of it. But you see, all along the way, they were training us. They were doing certain things in us, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to prepare us for what it would take to be the men and women to serve in the United States Marine Corps. God is doing the same thing. He has a path that he's laid out. He has a course of life, and he's working all things toward that path, toward the life that he has set for us. And also it says that they work together for good. Let's look at that word, good. Good in nature and character. They work together for good. God is good. All things work together for God. Not our pleasure. You see, that's where we get things kind of out of order when it comes to this. We have a tendency that when we say something's good, it means it's pleasurable to us. And we think that because that scripture says all things work together for good, to them that love God, I love God, so everything in my life is going to come up roses. It's a misunderstanding of what's going on here. It's a misunderstanding of the character of God, the sovereignty of God. God has a plan in our life. That plan is set. He's going to have his way in our life. Certain things are going to come along that are good for us that we may not enjoy, that we may not like, but God knows how good it is. When our daughter was young, very young, she started getting some of the shots that she needed to get. And it could be uncomfortable to hold her while they gave her a shot, and she would squirm and cry, and it wasn't pleasant for her, but it was good for her. Okay? It was hard as well to hold her, with the exception of understanding this is good for you. You may not like it now, but you're going to like it in the long term. Raising her was the same way. There were certain things that had to be done that were not pleasant. Disciplinary actions, keeping her from certain things and forcing her to do other things that she didn't want to do. It wasn't pleasant for her at the time, but they were necessary for her to do. And we all go through that, and that's where we need to understand that God always has our best interests at heart. He has a plan for our life. He has a way for our life. It's a course. Okay, his thoughts, his plan, and in the way of the course of our life, he has it laid out, and he's going to work all of this together for good. Not all things are for our pleasure, and it may not be the outcome we were hoping for, but it was good. It is good. And so we have to trust God for that. There are times in our lives where still, my prayer is, Lord, if there's anybody in my life that doesn't need to be in my life, I'm going to ask you to move them out. Just move them out. And there have been people that have left my life for whatever reasons, and I just have to trust that God knows, because he does know, it was best for them to go. God, take things out of my life that are not good for me. And so we have to trust God when we say that. Not just the things that are comfortable, but everything. Okay? And so, because this is where it gets personal when we start talking about the things going on in our life. Maybe the storm is going to do some damage, and it may be a physical storm, it may be an emotional storm, it may be whatever kind of storm. Maybe the family situation doesn't get resolved. Maybe the diagnosis doesn't change. You see, Romans 8:28 doesn't promise that the outcome we want is always going to be the outcome we get. It promises that it's going to be God's plan. It will never be outside of God's hand. God's always in control. God's definition of good is tied to a purpose, not our comfort. And that's what we have to understand. That's why we can always trust the who when we don't understand the why, because God is sovereign. And let's go look at Joseph. Joseph said something to his brothers. Joseph's brothers had sold him into slavery because they were jealous of him. And his father did play favorites with him. And so his brothers were jealous. They sold him into slavery. Not only did he spend time in slavery, but he was the best slave he could be. And then he spent time in prison for something he did not even do. But he was the best prisoner he could be. And because he never faltered, he didn't understand all of the why. He trusted the who. God raised him to the second most powerful position in the land of Egypt. And then God gave him the understanding of Pharaoh's dream to be able to preserve food, not only for Egypt, but for all that would come to Egypt, and ultimately for his own family's preservation. And when his brothers came to him seeking the food, and most of us are familiar with the story. If you're not, I encourage you to go back and read it. Because we're just going to pick up on one verse. They didn't recognize Joseph, but this comes from Genesis 50. They didn't recognize Joseph. And so when Joseph revealed himself to them, they were afraid. We wanted to kill this kid. Then we wound up just selling him into slavery, and now he has the power of life and death over us. But look at what Joseph's reply was. But as for you, you thought evil against me. But God meant it unto good to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Let's step back with Joseph for just a minute. Let's step back to the pit. Brothers are just trying to decide how they're going to get rid of him. He's in a pit. I promise you, he wanted God to get him out of that pit. Get him away from his brothers. So he could go tell their dad. That didn't work. Didn't happen. He was sold into slavery. He got out of the pit. Got away from his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He became a slave, and I'm sure that he was praying for a way out of that. But while he was in the midst of it, he made the best of it. He made the best of a bad situation. And God blessed that. And then Potiphar's wife accused him of something that he did not do. In fact, what he done was the opposite. And he got thrown in prison for it. And by this time, you would think he would be pretty frustrated with God. But he wasn't. He trusted the who because he didn't understand the why. And then along comes two servants of the king, the Pharaoh. And they have some dreams, and he interprets the dreams. One is put to death, just as his dream said. The other is restored to his position, just as Joseph revealed that his dream had said. 2 years go by. This man forgot Joseph. And then along comes the Pharaoh's dream. And that's when the cupbearer remembered there was a guy in prison that could interpret dreams. So they bring Joseph in. He interprets dreams. He's placed second in command. He is given charge over all of the land of Egypt to put up food storage for the famine that was coming, that God had warned them about. This wasn't just a famine in an area. This was a famine across the known world. And Joseph's own family was running out of food and would die. So they come down to Egypt because they hear there's food in Egypt. And this is where we are in this verse. Joseph says, you meant evil against me. You wanted to get rid of me. His brothers just wanted him gone. He was spoiled, and Dad favored him, and he was telling on them when they weren't doing the right things. They just wanted him out of their life. Lied to their father for all those years, said he'd been killed by a beast. It was horrible, Dad. We're so sorry. He says, but while you were doing that, God meant it for good. Why? Because Joseph had to be thrown in the pit. Joseph had to be thrown in, sold into slavery. Joseph had to be falsely accused and imprisoned in order to meet the cupbearer. And then he had to wait 2 years for the Pharaoh to have the dream so he could be established into the position to save the very lives of his family. He went through a lot that he didn't understand, but he just kept trusting God. God's got a plan. I don't know what the plan is, but God's got a plan. God's got a plan. God's got a plan. And I'm just going to trust him in it, and I'm going to trust him for it. And that's what we have to do. We have to trust God, because otherwise we wind up in this position that we find in Romans chapter number 9, verse number 20. Nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say unto him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? The potter to the clay. Who are we to look at God and say, this is not the way my life should be? This is not the way that you should have done this. How dare you do this in my life, to my life, whatever the case may be. We are the formed. He is the former. We have to understand this. Romans 9:21, it goes on and it says, thou hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? Who's in charge? Who's the sovereign one? See, sometimes we get this turned around and we think God is there for our benefit to do what we want done. But doesn't the potter have charge over the clay to decide what's going to happen? You see, this ties back into another passage that we need to understand. And until we understand this, we're not going to be able to trust the who. But Isaiah 46:11 says, calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country. Yea, and this is the part that I want to get to, I have spoken it, I will also bring it to pass. I have purposed it, I will also do it. What does it mean, I've purposed it? Well, the Hebrew word is yatsar, formed, shaped, or to fashion. This is the same word that is used in Genesis chapter 2, verse number 7, for God forming man out of the dust. I have purposed him. I have purposed his life. I have purposed the way that he is going to go. And he said, I will also do it. See, that's the part we have to remember. I have purposed it. I've decided. I've formed this path. I will also do it. God said, I've spoken it. I've purposed it. I'm going to bring it to pass. It is going to happen. We are going to get where God wants us to be. We just may not always like the path that we're going to go. So, we have to spend some time understanding the sovereignty of God. Whatever situation we find ourselves in, the clay doesn't get to decide what its shape is. It's just that simple. Sometimes we look at God and we say, that's not fair. God never promised to be fair. Not according to our fairness. Our fairness is comfort, my comfort. That's what determines the fairness level to most of us, is our comfort level. Whether we like it, our pleasure, those things. God doesn't promise that. All things work together for good. Good is the will of God. Good is the purpose that God has set us out for. Not necessarily what's most pleasurable for us. We have to understand, we look at good one way, God looks at good a different way. Our ways are not his ways. Our thoughts are not his thoughts. His ways and his thoughts are much higher than ours. So whatever situation we find ourselves in, whatever situation is going on right now, most of us, we have more than one situation going on in our life, and that's just the way life is. We have situations on this side. It may be family situations, medical situations. We have situations that come up in our jobs. We have situations that come up in all kinds of our health or somebody else's health. So the question that we have to ask in all those situations is it's not about why is this happening necessarily. You can ask the question. You might get the answer. Then again, you might not. Because God is not obligated to explain himself. And he usually doesn't. If you want to know what that's like, go back and read the book of Job. Job wanted some answers. Job had some questions for God. And God said, when you can answer all these questions, I'll answer your questions. It was just showing Job that my ways are not your ways. My thoughts are not your thoughts. So the question, it isn't why is this happening? The question is actually needs to come down to, is our trust in God based on the outcome or based on who he is? Do we trust God only if the outcome is what we approve, or do we trust God because we know God's sovereign? And though we may not like it, though it may not be comfortable, though I may not want to be in this situation, I may not want to be here, God is sovereign. And God is going to take charge, and God is going to do what God is going to do. But he always has good to come from it. Everything is going to be okay. It's going to turn out exactly the way God planned it. We just may not like the route to get there. Okay? So we need to come to this place where we ask these things. Psalm 139 in verse number 23, it says, search me, O God, know my heart, and try me, know my thoughts. Now, we don't have a problem with that. Let's read the next verse. You see, this is where it kind of gets sticky, but this is the verse that we really need to get into with God. And see if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. When we ask for this searching, When we ask God to look into us, to know our thoughts, to know our hearts, see if there's any wicked way in me. One of the things that we need to have this searching to include is, am I only willing to trust God if he gives me the answer I'm hoping for? Are we following God based on who he is, or are we following God based on outcomes? Is it a sovereign-based relationship? I trust God because he's sovereign, because he knows the end before there was a beginning, because he's already shown himself to take care of me and take care of his people and take care to do all of the things that he's promised he'll do. Plus, he's also told me things that are yet to come. Do I trust him because of that, or do I trust him because he gives me my way? You know, sometimes we've got favorite people in our life, and what makes them our favorite people is the fact that they do what we want, or they do the things that pleasure us. I mean, let's face it, we've all had those situations. We've all had relationships based on getting what we want. If I'm getting what I want, then it's a good relationship. If not, it's a bad relationship. Is that our relationship with God? Or do I trust him because of who he is? I trust him because he's most high. His counsel stands forever, no matter what. His ways are higher, and he works everything together. He knows the path that I need to be on going down this road, not just today. He knows the whole thing. So why am I trusting him? Even things I don't understand, am I going to trust God in that? Even things I don't like. See, God never told us we have to like everything that he does. We just have to trust him. We can ask questions. Just don't demand answers, especially not with an or else. Because that is an evil way. It's an evil thought. It's evil thinking. It's evil desires. Because that's trying to put us in the position of sovereign. I want what I want, and I'm going to have it, or else. Or else what? Quit following God? Where does that leave you? Following the devil. Yeah. Kind of like the children of Israel, you know, they wandered in the desert for 40 years because they refused to trust God. They were constantly saying, let us go back to being slaves. Let us go back to being beaten. Let us go back to being misused and abused rather than following God. Why? Because they didn't understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to make a nation out of them, not just a people. They couldn't look down the road. Look back in your life and see how those things have shaped you that have happened, have taken place in your life. You know, people ask me from time to time, if you could change anything in your life, what would you change? And I have to say that the honest answer is nothing. Why? Because everything that happened in my life has made me who I am and brought me to where I am at this point in my life. And it will affect every day of my life going forward. And I know that God has a plan. And I know that he has a path for me to walk down. And sometimes I may not like the path. And when I don't understand the path, why do I have to go down this path? You know, Lord, there's a 4-lane highway right over there. Why do I have to walk down this dark, rugged path that I can't even drive? I got to walk. And it's bumpy and it's dark. Why do I have to walk this way? I may never know. Lord, this is the most important day of my life. Why did I have to have a flat tire and miss that appointment? Well, maybe that wasn't the most important day of your life. Maybe it still was the most important day of your life, and you just didn't realize how important it was that you not be at that meeting. Maybe that diagnosis is going to be to God's glory. Maybe it's going to open somebody's eyes when they see a healing. In recent times, I have seen people in just a matter of a few short months go from diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, multiple tumors, to cancer-free. Not because of the doctors were so good, and I'm not saying the doctor's done anything wrong, but because God wanted glory. I've seen stroke patients who were non-responsive stand, speak, alert, go home. Not back to the life they had. Still some ways to go. But things changed. Why did they have to go through those to begin with? I don't know. I've seen family situations where they weren't restored. Some are restored. Why? It's part of the path. It's part of the way. When we don't understand why it's going on, we just have to understand and trust. We can't even understand him. I said understand. When we don't understand why, sometimes we don't even understand what is going on. We just have to trust who, and that's God. So this morning I want to close with this prayer. Take your just take time and pray this for yourself. Pray it in your own way. But I want us to pray together. Father, as we come to you today, we thank you for all that you are. And Father, there's many things that go on in our life and in this world that we don't understand. We can't wrap our head around. We can't make sense of it. We know that you can stop it and you can start it, or you could fix it. You could change it. And we don't understand why you don't. Father, in those times, let us feel your presence the most. Let us lean on you. Let us understand. Let us trust you. Let us understand that your ways are not our ways. Your thoughts are not our thoughts. That you have things in complete control. It is all going to work out to the good of those who love you. May not be the way we want it, but it's the way we need it. Because you know the path that lies ahead of us, not just the one that lies behind. So let us look to the scriptures. Let us look to the past in our own lives and around us and see that you always work things together for good according to your will. Father, let us trust you when we can't understand what's going on. And even when we do understand things that are going on around us, let us trust you to see us through. And Father, in all things, we will give you all praise in the blessed name of Jesus. Amen. Till the next time we're together, I encourage you, if you can't understand why, just trust who.